How do bass players like Billy Sheehan play so freaking fast? Practice. The answer is practice. Technically true and also very unhelpful. Hi, I'm Luke from Become a Bassist, and in this bass lesson, you're going to learn how to play with a 3-finger technique in your plucking hand, Billy Sheehan style, that you can use to play blisteringly fast and also have a ton of fun doing it. Welcome to Become a Bassist, where it's all about insanely practical, no BS bass lessons designed to get you playing better bass, having more fun, and becoming the best bassist you can be. And today we're all about technique. Specifically this kind of technique, the 3-finger plucking technique. This is great if you're into playing some rock or some metal, especially if you need a bit of speed and a ton of notes coming out of your bass really quickly. And I've got 5 levels of this technique for you to start building up your own blistering speed. So, how does it work? It's actually a lot easier than you might think. Now, most bassists, they're comfortable playing, 2 fingers, index and middle. The extra finger you're gonna add is this one right here. I guess you'd call it the ring finger, but it's on the right hand. So, yeah, so we're adding that one there. Now we're going to be doing a lot of playing with 3 fingers, so one of the first things you want to play around with on your own bass is seeing which finger feels the most comfortable taking the lead. Which one do you want to, basically use first in any given phrase? And there are, 3 basic options. Option 1 is leading with the ring finger, so this one here, so ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index. Now I find for most people, for whatever reason, they seem to be most comfortable with this. And that's exactly what I prefer. You might be different though and prefer option 2 to lead with the index. So instead of playing ring, middle, index, you play index, middle, ring, index, middle, ring. Now, for me, I don't know why, but this just kind of feels weird, but it might be perfect for you. The only way to figure it out is to try it on your own bass. Now, some people, although they're a little bit more rare, they prefer a third option, kind of waving back and forth between their index and ring like this. They'll start on their ring, then go to the middle and then the index, and then back to the middle, and then start all over again. So ring, middle, index, middle, ring, middle, index, middle. Or they do the reverse, where they start on their index, middle, index, middle, ring, middle, index, middle, ring. Yeah, I'm personally not a fan of these. They just feel alien to me. But again, that's me. It could work amazingly for you. So play around with those 3 ideas. Leading with the ring, leading with the index. You can tell that one's weird for me. Or doing the wave where you go back and forth between them. Pick one that you'll use for these exercises, and then you'll be ready for the very first level 1 exercise. The first thing we need to do in order to get this sounding really good is work on 2 things. Control over the dynamics, how loud or soft each individual note is, and consistent tone across all 3 fingers as well. Now, each finger is going to sound a little bit different, which is totally fine, but we don't want is a situation where, the tone in your index and middle fingers are nice and round and strong, and for example, your ring finger sounds really weak or sounds completely different from the other 2. And the way to work on that is to do this. We're just going to take a single note and play with your 3-finger technique. Now, I'm a fan of leading with my ring finger, so that's what I'll be doing for this, whole lesson, but feel free to use whichever method that works for you. So let's use this open A string right here and just play through the 3 fingers. Like I said, we're aiming for, as consistent tone and consistent dynamics as possible. You don't want this where, where one note is much louder or much softer than the, you don't want where you've got one note that kind of falls off the face of the earth. You want it to be as, consistent as possible. We will add more dynamics in soon, but at level 1, you want to aim for as much consistency as possible. You can also play with a metronome or a drum track. That'll make sure you stay nice and in time, and let's do that with this one. Staying in time is always going to be a good thing. Yeah, and by the way, The tracks and the tabs and notation, everything in this lesson is available as a free download at the first link in the description. Next, you also want to do this exact same thing on all of your other strings as well. They're all going to feel slightly different on each of them, and you want to get as used to them as possible as well. So on the E string, A string, D string, G string. Yeah, and you can even try, practicing moving between all the different strings. A, D, G, G, D, A, E. Yeah, this will become much more important in the later levels. Once you're comfortable doing this, playing just single notes, switching between the strings, you can move on to level 2. This is where you can start to add in the fretting hand and get to, get each of your hands working together. Now you can do this with just about anything you like, but for this level 2 exercise, we're just going to use the plain old major scale, and we're going to play every note 3 times, once with each of your plucking hand fingers. So with the drum track, it's going to sound like this. Down. Again, we're aiming for super consistent dynamics, super consistent tone. If you do struggle at that particular tempo, either turn the track off and go even slower, or you can use one of the slower practice tracks that you can download from that link in the description. Now, if you're using the wave, the ring, middle, index, middle, ring, middle, index, middle, then you don't have a 3-note cell, you have a 4-note cell. So play every note 4 times rather than 3, and you can use the practice tracks that are in 4/4 for that. So you do 3, 4. Yeah, and back down and all that kind of stuff. If you have any other kind of scale exercises that you do, things that you know really well, you can also use them to practice this technique. All you have to do is triple or quadruple the notes you use. So for example, this exercise in thirds. Yeah, when you add in the 3-finger plucking hand, you can play every note 3 times. So you go 1, 2, 3. Yeah, and again, you're always looking for nice consistent dynamics and tone, even when you do get faster. Yeah, now it might seem super impressive, but it's not really that difficult to work up to speed at the easier levels. Now so far everything has been relatively simple, and I've been getting you to make everything super consistent, but now I'm going to ask you to deliberately accent different notes so you can really start controlling your sound, controlling your technique. Now, if you're using the 3-finger 3-note cell, groups of 3 are pretty easy, right? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, ga, 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 like that. But groupings of 4 are going to be slightly trickier, right? But they're also probably going to be more common in real songs. So let's give those a try. For our first level 3 exercise, you're going to go back to playing just a single note. And we're going to keep the tone as consistent as possible, like always. But I'm going to get you to accent every 4th note. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but keeping that strict 3-finger picking technique in your right hand. So if we go super slow, it'll look like this. So starting with your leading finger, you accent that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you accent the next note with your middle finger. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then accent with the index. 2, 3, 4. So you'll find that when you've got a 3-note cell, the accent switches fingers every time. The first is your ring, then your middle, 1, 2, then your index, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you're starting back on the ring again. So you end up with ring, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, and then you're back at accenting the ring finger there. Yeah, the trick here is to get it sounding like you're just playing a regular bass line with 2 fingers, but while using 3. Like this kind of thing's relatively easy to do with 2 fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But with 3, you have to slow it down and think about it a little bit more. So you get 1, 2, 3, 4. just like that, right? You can also try doing this while crossing strings. Now this is a really cool exercise. Let's start on the E string and play 4 notes on every string, but keeping that strict 3-finger alternating technique. So we end up with E, 2, 3, 4, A, 2, 3, 4, D, G, G, yeah? This is really fun, and you can kind of sort of aim to start each string with a new finger. So ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle. Yeah, now this is getting into slightly more advanced territory, so you do have to start thinking a bit more, but it is still very manageable. Let's talk about level 4 now though. When you're comfortable with crossing strings and have a decent amount of control over where you're placing the accents, you can start to do things that are at least a little bit more musical, right? So let's go back to playing the plain old major scale and play every note 4 times with the first note always being accented. Now this gets trickier because now we'll be crossing strings as well as using the left hand. There's a bit more to it. Here's where you can come undone if you go a bit too fast. Let's try it though. Straight up the major scale, 4 times on each note, accenting with ring, then middle, then index, etc. So it's going to look like this. So we're going to end up with ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, up, index, ring, middle, index. Just like that, yeah? It seems like it should be an easy exercise, but it's really challenging. I find it helpful to actually say out loud the finger I want to use, like I've been doing, and things get even more challenging if you do the same thing with other permutations of the scale like we did before. For example, that one in thirds, that exercise there, if you did that with the same idea where you played every note 4 times with the three fingers, it gets really challenging. It can be really mind-bending. We end up with ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index. Oh, got there in the end. This isn't something I've worked on a huge amount, but if you are serious about getting, absolute control over this technique, then I would highly recommend it. The next level 4 exercise gets even trickier. We're still going to use the major scale, but instead of 4 times per note, we're just going to go up the scale normally. Like that, but keep the 3 strict fingers alternating. And as always, we want to keep consistent tone and consistent dynamics, so it should just sound like a plain old major scale, but you're using 3 fingers to do it. So if we start with the ring finger, it'll go like this. We're going to go ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index. Again, should be simple, but this can be tricky. Try it out for yourself super slowly and see how you go. If you feel okay with it, try doing some more permutations like we've been doing in thirds. That thing where you're supposed to tap your head and rub your belly. I feel like this is the kind of musical equivalent of that. It seems simple until you try and do it. Alright, if you've made it through the first 4 levels of this technique, your work is all about to pay off. Now the goal with any new technique or new idea is pretty much always to make some actual music, right? So for our final level, level 5, let's actually learn a bass line that we can use this technique with and also have a bit of fun doing it. The bass lines that work really well with this technique are the ones that are a bit gallopy, dun digga dun digga dun digga dun digga dun, that kind of vibe. And there are tons of options. You could check out Hart's Barracuda, that's a really good one. Muse's Knights of Sidonia, I love myself a bit of Muse. But right now I'd love to show you the intro and verse riff to Iron Maiden's The Trooper using this technique. Now Steve Harris from Iron Maiden, when he plays this, he only uses 2 fingers. He's a monster. But we're going to use 3 because we can, and not all of us can be Steve Harris. Now, it's going to go like this. Such a cool line. And like I said, Steve only uses 2 fingers to play this, but you know, we're going to use 3 just so we can practice this technique. We're starting with this figure. D, G, D, E, 5th fret on the A string, 5th fret on the D string, then back to the A, before going up to this E on the 7th fret on the A string. Now, you can play that however you want, but when we get to this point, that E, this is when we can start galloping using that 3-finger technique. Now, you can use whichever fingers you want to, to start. I'm using the ring finger, just what I prefer, and I recommend that you start on when you get to that second E. So there, that second one, I'd recommend starting with your leading finger, whether that's your ring or your index, and then plugging in those kind of 3-note cells. So for me, leading with the ring, see how I'm just going ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, ring, middle, index, all the way? That's the idea here. Now we get 4 of these kind of these cells in that galloping rhythm. Yeah, and then we get a sneaky little open A string. It's almost muted. And then we get the whole exact same thing repeating. Yeah, so we get... Yeah, that's the first half of the line. The second half is also very similar, except instead of playing E's the whole time, we play some C's instead in that rhythm. We get... Yeah, that same little connecting phrase, but then we go down to the C's, and then we get that little connected phrase again, before one more round of the E's. Yeah, there's really just those 2 ideas. There's a connector phrase, and then there's gallops on the E, and then there's gallops on the C. Yeah, you can play however you want in the plucking hand for the connector phrase. It's just when you get to the gallops, use that newfound 3-finger technique, put it all together, and you can do it also at a slower tempo to make things easier at the start. 2, 1, 2. Get it? 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. And at the performance tempo, up to speed, it'll sound more like this. Just like that. Like I said, such a cool line. Now, if you want the tabs notation and even the tracks I've been using in this lesson so you can practice all this stuff up and really work it and master it, then I've got good news. Everything you've seen in this video, even the slowed down practice tracks, they're all available as a free download on becomeabassist.com. Just head to the link in the description or click right here, fill out the form on that page, and I'll send it all to you 100% free. You can start practicing this stuff in less than 60 seconds. So I'll see you in there.